We're here today with Georgi Ivanov. Georgi, how you doing?
Doing great, Joe. Thank you. Thanks for having me. How are you today?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. One of my favorite guys on the site to have fly up to Boston and absolutely throw me around.
That's
Just so I
awesome.
can introduce you for the audience, Georgi Ivanov. Some of your career highlights as a wrestler include you reached the highest level of sports. You were a 2016 Olympian. You competed in the Olympic Games in 2016 in Rio. You were a 2015 World Team Member, both for your home country of Bulgaria. You also had a lot of folk style success. You were a 2013 Pac-12 champion, and you were the most outstanding wrestler for the Pac-12 championships. You were a two-time NCAA All-American, placing second and third at University of Nebraska, Omaha. You won the Dave Schultz here in America. You're somebody who had a lot of success. I want to talk about that at the beginning and kind of talk about your technical development and all these adjustments that you've had to make to your career, coming from freestyle to folk style back to freestyle. Tell me about, your earlier training before you came to America. Tell me about the training in your home country. How did it differ from like the training you see that happens here in America for kids around the same age?
Yeah, it's definitely different, right? But so is the culture. So is the expectations of the wrestlers. I mean, the system is different. Therefore, I feel like they had in Bulgaria. You have to adapt to the system. I mean, there is no folk style season. Kids don't wrestle folk style in high schools. Uh, College wrestlers don't wrestle folk style in colleges. So you don't have 15, 20 events in 4 month period like the folk style season here. So it's totally different systems. Therefore, the training needs to be adjusted accordingly. But we do a lot more in Bulgaria. Growing up, we did a lot more technique, a lot more studying the sport as far as many reps, not as much live wrestling. I feel like the reason for that was just because, I mean, imagine wrestling live every day and it only having 3 tournaments or 4 tournaments a year. I feel like kids burn out at a young age really quickly. So because of that, we spend a lot of time even developing the strength and conditioning part of it as a workout. So the way, I'll give you a little background. The way I grew up is I wrestled at a high school and even middle school. It's called sports school. Okay, and you start at sixth grade, and that's
It sounds like a TV show. It sounds like a little kids TV show, sports school.
yeah, no, it is. And it's developed for it's developed for athletes specifically. So it's like going to a specific school that just gives a lot of attention to athletics. It's like,
Right.
how to explain it? It's like
It's like Harvard, but for kids that can do pull-ups.
right. It's like going to MIT for math. It's the same thing. So we spend it. The way it was developed is instead of going to school for 9 months and having 3 months off in the summer, they made it where you go to school for 10 months and only 2 months summer break. But because of that, we have some days in the week that we only have four classes instead of like 6 classes. And the reason for that is it's 2 days a week where we have 4 classes. And during those days, we have 2 practices a day in the school, instead of just having 1 practice a day. So you end up having about 8 practices a week because we practice on Saturday as well. So it's very, very much so athletic focused, if that makes sense.
I believe it. And what ages roughly are kind of in this program? How young are they going and how old are they going?
Yeah, so you must get accepted into that. So you cover like a physical test, and it starts at sixth grade. Is when you the earliest you can get accepted in that, and it goes all the way through your senior year of high school.
Gotcha. Okay. And is everybody practicing together, or are you just with like a couple of people? Like, how big is this program of wrestlers that you're training with?
Yeah, everyone is practicing together, and if I remember correctly, I believe they separate you by a little bit by age division. So, you have I believe the cadet age division practicing at one time, and then you have the juniors practicing at a different time. But yeah, I mean, it becomes a huge brotherhood, and I'm sure Boris Novachkov. He just I believe recorded
We actually just shot with him. Yeah, Boris is coming out soon.
So Boris and I have a huge history. We grew up together. We wrestled in Bulgaria. We were in the
Good
same.
history, bad history.
No, good. Yeah, great.
Okay, good.
We grew up together. We were in the same team, same class, same sports school. We practiced together since 6th grade,
Man,
and
no kidding.
we were even roommates in the Olympics.
That's wild. Yeah, I was thinking about it yesterday. I know so many Bulgarian Olympians now, so many more than I did a couple years ago.
Too.
Yeah, I know too. Man, I'm doubling up from even what I had a couple months ago. So tell me about for this sports school that was in your home country of Bulgaria. What does the average practice look like when you show up to practice? Kind of what are you expecting?
Yes, great question. So practices are about 2 hours, 2.5 hours each, and
2.5 hours, really? That's pretty long.
it is long. Yeah, it is long. But like I said, it's not as intense. Not all practices are as intense, and that's why they're built that way. You spend about 25 minutes warming up, which is a long time, right? But what you do is you run a little bit, you go through stretches, you go through, you do some tumbling as well. We develop body coordination, balance. Those are great skills, and you do all that before you even begin practice. And then after that, obviously it depends on what practice you have that day. But let's say you have a regular technique practice. Once you're done warming up, you get a partner and you start drilling. And a lot of it is sometimes we would drill one move the whole practice. That's very typical, where let's say you drill a high crotch today, and you would study it and start slow, and then you'd start with a little more resistance, and then you may even go a little like 50% live, just so you can get a good feel for it. And if the guy stops you from a certain position where you can't finish, we might break, and the coach would show what to do from that situation, and then go back and do it again. So it's a very technique oriented.
It really does sound very similar to a jiu-jitsu class. I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu now. I teach my own classes, and it really is pretty similar to how I think a lot of jiu-jitsu places kind of structure their own workouts. It's a little bit longer for sure. 2.5 hours. You don't see jiu-jitsu practices that long, but it's interesting to see those two similarities. You were talking about, a high crotch or getting good at one position, but we got to talk about the position that, I think you're probably best at, if I had to guess, if I had to pick one, and that's the 2-on-1. One of the products that you have on our site is the 2-on-1 encyclopedia, which has, I think, over 40 moves, all from just the 2-on-1. And it's a real system based around the person's reactions and what they're, what you're feeling, and how to tell when different moves are right for the right situation. Is that how you got so good and developed so much from that 2-on-1? It's just, tell me about that. Tell me about your relationship to the 2-on-1 control type, because you're really, really good there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, yes, that instructional, for those of you that are listening, that instructional is the life works, man. I've spent my whole life developing the knowledge in there, and it's literally developed. It's delivered to you in one instructional. So, I mean, it's the reason I got so good at 2-on-1 is because my father was really good at it, and just so it happened that I started liking it a lot, and we started studying it, and I mean, it's hours and hours of practice. And 2-on-1 can be very, let me be the first one to say this, 2-on-1 can be very, very frustrating position, because it's difficult to master. But it's one of those moves where once you master it, man, does it pay off. You can completely dominate a wrestler, a good wrestler, just by wrestling 2-on-1, because not a lot of people spend the time to develop this position. But because, like I said, it's very detailed, it's extremely detailed, and it's very difficult to master. But I've spent hours of studying film, watching Russian wrestlers, right? That's where the nickname comes from, the Russian Thai. I mean, a lot of back, you go 50, 60 years, they started developing this. I mean, I can go back and mention some names like Beloglazov and Saitiev and a lot of other wrestlers as well. And I've studied those guys like a lot. I've spent a lot of hours watching them and practicing and watching and practicing. And that's how I got so good at it. I just got obsessed with that position.
Man, I can believe it. And yeah, you showed me some stuff in there that I wasn't really the biggest 2-on-1 guy before that, but I would kind of wrestle out of a couple of like cross wrist positions. But you showed me that a drill or two for improving at the 2-on-1. Man, I use it way more often now. I think it's a really fantastic instructional, and I think that anybody who picks it up, you're going to learn a lot about the 2-on-1. Even if you think you know 2-on-1s, you're going to get a lot out of this.
Joe, it's been amazing of how many fan messages I've received from people that have purchased that instructional, and they're just they're just, I mean, it's all good stuff. They're just saying, hey, this has improved my game so much. Even jiu-jitsu guys, you know, they're just loving it. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for purchasing that and for sending me those messages. It means a lot to me.
So I always, you know, I always give the piece of advice to a wrestler, to a jiu-jitsu fighter, you know, to anybody. Develop a system, get a position you're good at, and know everything from it, right? And I think that that's kind of been something that you brought up with your early training in Bulgaria at the sporting academy, was just putting yourself in that situation as often as possible. Is there anything else around like creating a system that you think people should know? Like, do you always go for the same takedowns? Or, you know, are you trying to purposefully like try different things? You know,
Absolutely. So, and I'm going to paraphrase a quote here from Bruce Lee, but it's basically, you know, he says that I don't fear a person that has tried 10,000 kicks one time. I fear a person that has tried one kick 10,000 times, right? So that speaks volumes. And if I had to give an advice to develop a system, that's a must. It's not even optional. You must have a system. And what I call this, it's your own unique style of wrestling that you develop. And I've spent many, you know, I wasn't the most talented. Trust me when I say this. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the most mentally tough athlete out there, you know. But what I did do is I was persistent, and I developed a style of wrestling that was my style of wrestling that was very, very unique. And I got good at it. I mean, you can study all these successful wrestlers. They all have their unique styles. You can study John Smith with his low ankle shots. You can study, you know, Jordan Burroughs with his double leg. You can, you know, everybody has a unique style that they just perfect and they get really, really good at it. And to be honest with you, you mentioned that you believe that 2-on-1 is one of my best positions. Yes, it is one of my best positions, but actually I think one of my best position is actually my hand fighting. And that's what I got really good at it. And if there is an advice that I can give our listeners right now and our fans, you know, is that hand fighting is the A, B, and C in your wrestling success. And the reason I say this, all of it starts right there on your feet. If you get good at hand fighting, what that means is that you've completely neutralized your opponent, for one. For two, every setup begins after you've won the hand fighting position, right? So it's putting it this way, it's like you don't succeed in wrestling without having a great discipline position and great hand fighting.
Man, I totally agree. You know, when you look at a match that was won by like probably 2 points or less, unless there was like some back points involved, if you see a match that was only won by one takedown, it wasn't really won by that one takedown, was it? It was won by the hand fighting, you know, a lot of times. And so it's just such an important detail. And it's one that we covered with you, actually, you know, not to make this just nonstop products, but man, we have your other DVD, which I was the grappling dummy for, Effective Hand Fighting Explained. And I was really impressed when you shot this about how it really ties together so much of how to start a match, so much of how to put a match together, and so much of how to, yeah, like you said, stay safe all the time. Somebody's trying to underhook you. What do you do? Somebody's trying to 2-on-1 you. What do you do? How do you get to the stuff that you want to do? And it's so much of wrestling knowledge that usually has to come with experience that I think this roadmap is so much more valuable for people. And I think that especially for like maybe a kid who is starting a little bit after, maybe he's like a 9th grader and he's like jealous of all the kids who grew up wrestling. You know, I think this would be a great thing for somebody like that. And I think there's a lot of great stuff in there.
Joe, to be honest with you, I can't emphasize how important that instructional is. I mean, if you're a wrestler and you don't have this instructional, I don't know, you really are falling behind. This is a shortcut. This is a blueprint shortcut that literally, I mean, this is, like I said, I'm a student of the sport, right? I wish some of the stuff that I teach in that instructional, I wish I knew that when I was training and when I was at a younger age. Joe, these are things that I developed, you know, as late as right before the Olympics. It started clicking in my head. Or right when I was coaching at a university, when I started teaching guys, you know, a lot of people say, you know, you learn something and then go and try to teach it. That's how you're going to learn it and master it the best. And that is no joke. That is exactly when I started realizing that, hey, there is actually a system to hand fighting. There's actually a blueprint that you can follow that is going to put you in good position every time. You're not going to get out of position. You're going to be, I mean, it's like your opponent becomes like an open book, right? You know exactly what they're doing. You know exactly how to neutralize them. And it's just, I don't know. It just speeds up your success by so much. It's amazing. So I really am proud of that instructional. I mean, if you think about it, no one really out there has tried to explain hand fighting. It's such a complicated topic that you know, because everyone wrestles differently. But the basis of it, and the setups and the discipline of it, it's all the same, and no one has really tried to break it down until now. And I highly encourage people to spend some time learning and studying and just completely dissecting that instructional.
Man, I agree. And I agree. Everybody can level up their hand fighting, right? You said some things in there that maybe I knew them like on a deep level, like somebody like asked me about it, but you said it in such a way, and you said it with a sentence that I could focus on, like about like getting the guy's elbows moving, or, you know, just some of the little tips. I don't want to give everything away, you know what I mean? But some of the tips in there, even as a lifelong wrestler, I realized like I've never heard it put that way, and that makes a ton of sense. And it actually makes a lot of this a lot easier. And so, yeah, hand fighting isn't just moving your hands. There's a science to it. There's an art to it. There's patterns in there. And I think you do a really good job of explaining a lot of that. But Georgi, you were talking about styles, and I want to talk about styles. Because you're somebody who's had to change styles, like literally like wrestling styles a lot, because you came from freestyle, the Sporting Academy. Internationally, they only do freestyle and Greco-Roman. Folk style is only an American thing. Then you come to America to study in college, correct? You came here for college or for high school?
I came here right before my senior year of high school. So I came for my senior year of high school.
What was it like? Because we're used to seeing folk style athletes have to adapt to freestyle, or American athletes adapt to an international style. What was it like coming from Bulgaria and adapting to folk style?
Man, that's a great question, Joe. And yeah, it was a struggle. Fortunately enough for me, I was at that time, I was starting to get really, really good at freestyle in Bulgaria. I was, anyways, I'm just going to give you a short background here. Okay. So I in Bulgaria, I was starting to get really, really good. I was one of the top athletes for my age division. I was 4 times national champ. I took 5th in Europe for my age division. And I was winning some international tournaments. I was really feeling good. And what happened is I got hurt. I got really, really injured bad. And I was still 15 years old, you know. So once I got hurt, it was in my lower back. I couldn't move. You know, doctors were saying that my growth is stunned. Doctors were saying that I'll be happy to ever walk again, not let alone wrestle. And so it was very, very scary experience for me. And that's when I had to reconsider life. And I realized that I recovered, right? I did some stuff and I recovered, but I realized that wrestling wasn't going to be forever. And that is when priorities changed. That is when everything changed. And that's why one of the reasons I came to the U.S. and I came by myself. I was 16 years old when I came here by myself. I didn't speak English, so it was extremely difficult process for me to adapt, and it was a huge culture shock. But I knew what I experienced, and it was an epiphany where I couldn't go back to it. Right, I couldn't go back to prioritizing wrestling 100%, because I knew that one injury can be the end of it, and that could be very, very detrimental mentally and, you know, just psychological for my whole life. So I decided to come to the US. I stayed here. And when I started wrestling folk style my senior year of high school, back to your question, it was a huge change. But luckily, like I said, I just wrestled on my feet for the most of it. I wrestled on my feet, takedowns and cut people, takedowns, cut people. And on bottom, a lot of times people would just ride me out, and I just focus on not getting turned, right? But
yeah, fair enough. Just starfish out. And
right. It was funny though, because I had a lot of locked hands on top, and it was fun. It was fun. My team got a good laugh out of it, but like, you know, it was still a successful season.
I bet when you came, you're somebody who would know this a little bit better, and it's always something that I have questions about. How different is the takedown game between freestyle and folk style? Does the push out change things? Does the exposure, you know, is a single leg, or is it really that different? Because I feel like I see some athletes who are so successful with their takedowns in freestyle, it doesn't always translate to folk style. What do you think?
It is very, very different. And I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. You know, I was very frustrated with that, and I still am. I'm a very competitive person, and my collegiate career, yeah, I had some success, right? But it's not what I know that it could have been. I lost a lot of matches because of I just couldn't. I could never adapt to the folk style system. Wrestling freestyle is a lot more. It's cleaner finishes. It's a lot more technical, which is what I spent my whole life doing. And going to folk style, man, people would just scramble for the sake of scrambling. They would give you reactions that are not normal to me. They weren't normal to me. They would give you fall on their back just so they can get out of like a high crotch or a sweep single. You know what I mean? Just they did stuff that I wasn't used to, and that cost me the match a lot of times. And let alone transitioning to the little details in folk style where you wrestle on the edge, you secure both ankles, it's a takedown. Little things like that make a huge difference when you wrestle someone that's tough, and that cost me a lot of my success in folk style in college, I believe. But with that being said, I spent 5 years wrestling nothing but folk style in college because I was a Bulgarian citizen. I didn't travel back to Bulgaria, and I couldn't wrestle in like the U.S. Open or anything like that in the U.S. So I just had folk style to wrestle, and that was not what I was good at. I just did it because I had a scholarship, and my priority at that point was to get a college education. And like I said, priorities shift, but going back to wrestling at the Dave Schultz tournament and winning it right after my collegiate career in freestyle, winning the Dave Schultz International tournament in folk style and beating some top guys, right? I beat a guy that took third at Worlds and fifth at the Olympics. And so it was actually Bekzot Abdurakhmanov from Uzbekistan.
Oh, Bekzot, really? Wow. Awesome.
Yeah,
that's an amazing wrestler. Yeah.
Amazing wrestler, yeah. And that's who I had in the finals. And he's even he has wins over.
I remember that match.
Yeah. So my point was this: it was such a freedom for me mentally to go back and compete in freestyle. It felt like I was back in home waters. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
It has been 5 years since I wrestled a freestyle match, and it just felt so natural. And that's when I knew that I had to go back and try to relive my childhood dreams of making an Olympic and world team. So.
Well, spoiler alert, it worked out pretty well. Let's talk about your college experience in a second, but I want to talk about something that comes up a lot that I see that you kind of touched on. I see a lot of athletes as soon as they get out of college, especially, American athletes, obviously. I see a lot of American athletes as soon as they get out of college, turn around and have a lot of great success early on in their international career. Those first 2 or 3 years right out of college, that tends to be right when they're hottest. Internationally and see some of their best results. Why do you think that is? Do you have a theory around that? Because the logic would say that these guys, okay, they get out of college and suddenly they can train freestyle full time. They should see better freestyle results as that goes on. But that isn't always the case. Do you have an idea why?
I do. I have a theory, actually.
Please.
I think that the reason that happens is because here's what happens, okay? Those good guys, the good guys in college, you look at Bo Nickel, you look at, there's many of them, right? Those good.
Take your pick, yeah.
Out of college. What happens is they grow up in the U.S. The U.S. loves wrestling. It's a wrestling country, right? And so what happens is those guys grow up on a pedestal and they grow up with such confidence and they're good at folk style. They don't even have to be the best at freestyle at that point. A lot of it is mental. They come out with such momentum from folk style season that they feel like they're unstoppable. Okay, they are tough guys. They're in shape, right? I do believe that folk style forces you to get in better shape just because of longer matches, a lot more scrambles, a lot more uncertainty, I guess you can say. And so what happens is those guys come out with such huge momentum that they feel unstoppable, and they go out there and they wrestle, and they put on such a high pace internationally that guys can't really keep up with them. And they wrestle actually the guys that are successful in freestyle, the transition from folk style to freestyle. If you go back and notice, those are the guys that scramble, but they scramble clean. They don't go through their backs. They finish clean. They have a system and a style of wrestling that allows them to transition to freestyle. Now, if and now you notice that the longer they stay in freestyle, they start overthinking things. They start competing more with international, and guys start figuring them out for the most part. And that's when they stop being as successful. I think there's a reason the U.S. overall does not have a longevity in the freestyle, in their freestyle careers. I mean, Burroughs has one of the longest careers as a freestyle athlete, as a freestyle wrestler in the U.S., and he's only been competing for, I don't know, I mean, he's barely over 30 years old, right? I mean, you have a lot of Russians, a lot of
10 years now at the world level, though. That's a long time.
That is no doubt.
That's crazy long. Yeah,
very long time, for sure. But that's something that is the norm overseas, is what I'm trying to say. And here is an exception.
That's definitely true. Like in America, we would never see. I feel like for the Olympic Games every 4 years, like we just see a guy like come out, that's like maybe you won it like 2 or 3 years ago, like Adam Batiev or somebody will just come out at like 34, 35 and like win matches and do really well. But in America,
another thing you got to keep into consideration is when guys graduate college, they're 20, 23, 20, 22-year-olds.
I think this is big, yeah.
European countries, they start wrestling international when they're 18, 19 on the senior level. So
I think that's huge too. I agree about that for sure. Is the age, we spend a lot of our best years and we, spend a lot of our best effort here in folk style. So let's get back to your college years, because I would really like to talk about that. So you come to America, you wrestle folk style as a senior, you end up at University of Nebraska at Omaha, and you become a 2-time All-American there, placing second and third at the national tournament. You transfer over to Boise State. We hope to see their program back eventually. But that was a transition between Division II and Division I. Can you tell me about what that transition was like? Because there's a lot of athletes who are like, maybe they're not quite Division I. What's the difference there?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, Joe? There is good guys in my opinion. There's good guys, good wrestlers in any division. Now,
well, I can think of an Olympian from Division II off the top of my head. I'm speaking to him.
One as well. I mean, Tervel Dlagnev, right?
Tervel Dlagnev, Joe Rao. No, we can go up and down the list. There's a bunch of amazing guys.
But my point is, Division I is just deeper. It's deeper, and it makes sense, right? That's how the system is built. Where the Division I programs, they're bigger schools. They have more money. They recruit. They have better, not necessarily better, but higher profile coaches, and they recruit higher profile athletes overall, right? So that makes sense to me. Now, can I wrestle Division I and Division II? Yes, I was very, very good at Division II, and I can definitely wrestle with top guys in Division I. Now, what was detrimental to my success in Division I was the fact that I went from a program we were 3 times national champions. We were very, very close as a team at University of Nebraska Omaha. It was a brotherhood, okay? And them dropping our wrestling program, it was just nothing was the same after that. And that reminded me of why I came to the States. It's because when I got hurt in Bulgaria, going back to that story, I was one of the best wrestlers. And actually what I missed telling you guys the first time in that story is that once I got hurt, my coach actually kicked me off the team in Bulgaria because he didn't want to be liable.
Horrible. I'm really, really sorry to hear that.
No, it is what it is. But what I'm saying is that brought back a lot of memories when we just won our 3rd title in a row at the University of Nebraska Omaha, and they dropped us. The athletic director didn't even call to congratulate us. He just called us to tell us that 1 hour after we won, he called our coach, Coach Danny, and told him that, hey, by the way, when you come back on campus tomorrow, your locker rooms are closed, the university's closed, and you can't even access your locker room. No, it was a disaster. So when I went to Boise State, my priorities once again were different. I went there because, for one, they offered me a scholarship. For two, my parents were there at the time, and I thought that was a great opportunity for me after being away from them for 4 years to go back and reconnect. And it was, and that's fortunately enough for me. That's where I met my wife. So it was a great experience. But priority for me wasn't the same. Okay, and that, once you're divided on that level, you don't succeed, right? You need to be very narrow focused, very determined in order to succeed. And I had different priorities, but I still was okay, right? I was successful. I won Pac-12s. I was an outstanding wrestler, etc. I was in the bubble round of NCAAs. My junior year, I got hurt. My senior year, I for some reason I wasn't seeded. I ended up beating the 3 seed guy from Walsh from Indiana, and in the quarters I lost by a point to Deringer, a very close match. And then on the backside I lost to a guy from Ohio or Oregon State that I wrestled 10 times in 2 years, and I beat him 2 weeks before the national tournament at Pac-12s in the finals. So it was just an unfortunate event for me. But what I'm saying is I was over it. I was over the wrestling. After that, I was over it. I didn't want to hear about wrestling.
Freestyle or folk style or both?
Both, man. I was just over it. You know, I was so over it, and I just wanted to be done. But what happened was, right after that, my college coach, Coach Denny, he went down to Maryville University in St. Louis, and that's where he was coaching after they dropped UNO. And once I graduated, he called me and asked me to go and help him be an assistant coach, and I did. A short 6 months, Joe, the transition from me graduating in May until December of that same year of 2013, I was around positive people. I was around a good team, and I was coaching, and I was enjoying my life. And I started wrestling again with the guys, and it lit a spark in me. And the guys actually challenged me to go and wrestle with Dave Schultz out of nowhere. And that's exactly what I did. In 2014, January is when I won Dave Schultz. And I ended up beating people like Welch from Northwestern. I beat him there. I beat Big Zook, like I said. I beat some good guys there.
And to win the Dave Schultz, you're going to have to beat, at least 3 or 4 really, really quality opponents.
Right. So anyways, but that's kind of so back to your question, Division I, Division II. In my opinion, Division I is deeper for sure. The spotlight is more on those athletes. I mean, media, have all the media sources, flow wrestling, track wrestling. They cover Division I by far more than any other division. And so you automatically have this social proof. You automatically have this spotlight on those athletes, and they thrive off of that, right? They get confident. They believe they're better than everyone else, and everyone else in the country, and that's what happens. And yeah, Division I is better overall. There is no doubt. I mean, like I said, but that's
Division I for a reason, right? But I think your point about Division II still has like some really elite quality guys who can hang with a lot of the Division I guys. But yeah, that depth is just it's definitely a different animal.
Right.
Man, that's a crazy, crazy story about, you guys win a national tournament and you turn around and immediately, like, you can't even get into your locker room. And, to go through your college, you were at Boise State under Greg Randall. You were at Nebraska at Omaha under Mike Denny. And those are 2 programs that actually no longer exist. Those are 2 programs that have been cut. And we're kind of sitting here. There's actually just another college program cut at the Division I level, Old Dominion, which is a really good school and every year produces a bunch of results. Do you have any advice for those athletes? If you could say anything to the athletes who are now having to go through losing this program, maybe they're in the middle of their college career, what would you say to those guys?
Yes, I do. I actually have a great advice for them.
Please. Man, who knows better? You've been through it twice, basically.
Yes. And I'm going to start by saying that, yes, the pain is huge. You can imagine me going to 2 programs that no longer exist. I don't have a place to go back and take my kid and say, hey, this is where I wrestled. This is the team that I was on. This is what happened. I don't have that. And I completely relate with you guys, but here's what you can do. And not only in your situation, but also in life. I live by this formula now, and I keep using it. And it's called E plus R equals O. And it stands for event plus response equals outcome. So the event, we don't control the events. We often don't control the events. We don't control what happens to us in life. We don't control if they cut our wrestling program. We don't control if we get pinned sometimes. We don't control these things. But what you do control is your response to that event. And you control how you react. You control the meaning you give to those events. You control what you're going to do right after that happens. You control all of that. And I'm no math person, but you change one of the variables, and the outcome, the O, is completely different, right? So event plus response equals outcome. So by saying that you control 100% of the response to the events that are happening in your life, it's the same thing to say that you 100% control the outcome that you produce in your life. So you are 100% in control of your life and your actions and what you're going to do from here on out. Now, be positive, especially now in these times of uncertainty. You control that, okay? Be positive. Give life good meaning. You control the meaning that you give to your life. Okay, that will take you places. That will make the best out of any situation in your life. Yes, they cut wrestling. Okay, you're not the first program. Unfortunately, you're not going to be the last program that they cut. Make the best of it. Cherish those relationships with the friends that you've built. You know, you guys are going to share share the highs and lows that you've been through with your teammates, and that becomes a brotherhood like no other. Okay, stay in touch with those people, help each other for the rest of your lives, and go to your next program, go wherever you're going next, and share that experience with other people and tell them what you learned from it. But make it a positive experience. Okay, don't only focus on the negative part. Don't let that one decision of your athletic department control your experience as a collegiate wrestler or your experience with the friendships that you develop. And that's all I can say.
Man, I hear you. I think that's great advice. Let's graduate from college, Pac-12 champion, Pac-12 MOW. 2014, the fire's lit again. You win the Dave Schultz and you beat a lot of really tough guys to do it. So then 2015, you're on the Bulgarian World Team. 2016, you are the Bulgarian Olympic representative. How does that work? Are you still living in America? Are you traveling back to Bulgaria periodically, like maybe to like compete in some trials? Like, how does that work being here but competing for Bulgaria?
Yeah, it was tough. But yes, there was a lot of travel. There were a lot of challenges. You know, Joe, I don't know of too many other people that lived in the U.S. So imagine this. This was all happening at the same time, okay? I had just gotten married, right? Today's my wife and I's anniversary, 6 years. But if you did,
congratulations.
Thank you. I had just gotten married, okay? I was a full-time associate head coach. I was also working.
And that was at Marysville?
Maryville University in St. Louis. It's a private institution, Division II. So I was a full-time associate head coach under Coach Mike Denny. I was married, full-time coach. I was full-time working in the enrollment department. I was working for the university. I was actually helping with international students get accepted. So I was doing that. I was full-time graduate student. I was getting my master's. You know, sometimes, you know, it was all after practice, or night classes or online classes. So I was full-time graduate student, and I was traveling back and forth trying to compete, trying to make the Olympics. So, I mean, my days were waking up at 5:30 in the morning, going to the morning workout with the team, lift or whatever it is, go in the office, work all day, go to practice in the afternoon, stay after practice to work on my own conditioning or technique or whatever it may be. And then from there, go to night class. And I would come home at like 10 o'clock at night and literally hit the bed and pass out. All that while having to, you know, pay attention to my nutrition, maintain my weight, etc. Travel. It was just a lot on my plate.
I agree, man. That's absolutely a ton. But, you know, knowing you a little bit as I do, I consider as friends, you know, you're a pretty motivated guy. As my grandmother would say, you don't let the grass grow under your feet. Exactly. You're always moving. Are you still like learning at this time? Are you still adding to your game? Are you still like picking up new tricks? Or is it more just about like, let's get tough, let's get strong, let's get ready to go? Because at this point you have a lot of experience. At this point, you know, you've been wrestling a long time. You're getting ready for Worlds, for Olympics, you know, or is there still capacity to add a couple little tricks in there?
Absolutely. Joe, you're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. And I didn't make the Olympics by not learning more. I mean, I here's the thing. Making an Olympic team or a world team, not only do you have to grow as a person, not only do you have to grow physically and mentally and technically, I mean, you have to change. You have to really grow as a person overall. You know, you at first it's a dream, and you don't even understand it. Right? You don't even comprehend the fact that you can actually be an Olympian. But you slowly start believing in it, and yes, I keep learning. You definitely keep learning every day. You keep studying yourself. You know, you're in practice, and even though you're beating the crap out of everyone, you're still thinking, man, how can I make this easier? How can I make this better? I had a hard time finishing this today. You know, go back, call my father. He was my wrestling coach. Ask him how can I get better at that? or go and watch a YouTube match, you know, some of the greats in our sport, and study them and how they did it and how they finish out of that position. But it's a nonstop learning process, learning and evolving. I mean, I still do because now I coach kids. You know, I'm shooting instructionals with you guys. I'm constantly putting out information online, and I'm constantly studying and evolving as a person. I actually think that I understand wrestling as a whole right now better than I ever have in my whole life. And that helps me simplify what I'm teaching. You know, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, right? It's being able to break something down to make it so simple. It means that you really, really have to understand how to do it. And that's my goal. That's what I'm trying to do right now.
Man, I totally agree about, you know, if you can't explain it simply, you just don't understand it. I really think that's another little chunk of wisdom that you're throwing out here. I love it. So you competed at the Worlds in 2015, and that was in Uzbekistan, maybe, if I remember that right? Maybe Tashkent?
No, 15 was in Vegas, Las Vegas.
15 was in Vegas, that's right. 14 was in Tashkent. 15 was Vegas, and that was awesome. Okay, so it wasn't even that long of a commute. You know, that's pretty sweet. And then down to Rio for the Olympics. So as somebody who's experienced both a World Championships and an Olympic Games, is there a difference, you know, in your preparation and the feeling maybe, you know, tell me about the differences between a World Championships, which is obviously very prestigious, very important and all that, but and then the Olympic Games.
Huge difference, Joe. First of all, to make a world team, all you have to do, and when I say all you have to do, that's still very, very challenging, but to make a world team, you have to just be the #1 guy in your country, and then you go. To make an Olympic, which means that
for some countries, it just means be the guy.
Yes, right. Right. But for the top countries, that's not the case, right? It's very challenging.
For a country like Bulgaria, it's very difficult.
Bulgaria, U.S., Russia, you know, all these top countries, Iran, you know, those top countries, it's a battle. But my point is this, you know, you become the #1 guy in your country and you go to Worlds, and you can have, you know, over 40 wrestlers in your bracket. Now, making the Olympic team, however, means that there's only, well, this year at the Olympics, there were supposed to be, well, now it's next year, 2021, there's only 16 spots per weight class, and there's only 6 weight classes, you know, and the World Championships every other year, there's 10 weight classes, and you can have as many entries in there as countries wish to send guys to, right? You can have 40 guys in there. And the Olympics is only 6 weight classes instead of 10, and only 16 guys per weight class. So now not only do you have to be the #1 guy in your own country, but you have to go and take either top 2 at your continent, like Pan American Games, Europeans, which is extremely difficult, Asian Games, you know, you have to be top 2 there, or you have 2 chances to qualify at the World Championships. You know, you have to be top 2 at the World Qualifier. And that's what I did. I took 2nd at Worlds in Mongolia, the World Qualifier, to be able to secure a spot for Bulgaria in the Olympics.
Man, that's incredible. And I've talked to a couple of people who are at that Mongolian tournament. And from what I understand, it was just this like super chaotic, super crazy event. Was that your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Joe, I didn't even pay attention to that. I was so narrow focused and so determined that could have been my last tournament, to be honest with you. If I didn't make it there, I was done. I mean, I was, you know, I was retiring. So I knew that, and I gave it all that I had, and I performed very, very well. And yeah, I mean, it paid off.
My man. And then, so you've competed at the Worlds, you competed at the Olympics. Is there one, how about this? Tell me about the Olympic Games, Georgi. That's what I want to know about. You're somebody who's competed. You're somebody who has done something that so few will ever get the chance to. You know, you reach that high level. Please tell me about it.
It's an unbelievable experience. Is it worth it? 1,000,000%. Yes, it's worth it. It's something that not everyone gets to experience. And it's, you know, what's amazing is walking in the Olympic Village, and you will never experience anything like this. Walking in the Olympic Village and seeing all the buildings and all the flags are displayed on the outside of the buildings, all the flags of the different countries, and you walk down the street and it's literally like every athlete that you see, they're one of the best ones in their respective sports. Every coach that you see, it's either like a past superstar or like a great coach, and it's unbelievable to be amongst like-minded people that you know, that are some of the best in the world. I mean, yeah, it's I can't describe it. It's an unbelievable experience.
Man, I believe it. I'm so happy for you guys, and uh, man, amazing. Let's talk about, since the Olympic Games, you moved on. You are now, like you said, you know, you're coaching youth wrestling. You're the Nebraska USA Wrestling Executive Director, which I think is super exciting. You're the owner of Top Tier Performance. You're the owner of The Best Wrestler. You know, there's ttpnutrition.com, which is your website, thebestwrestler.com, which is your website. How are you spending your days these days? Tell me about modern Georgie.
Yeah, very, very organized, you know, very structured. You have to be to manage, you know, to juggle that many different hats. You know, you have to be organized. But you know, I couldn't stay away from the sport. You know, I've spent my whole life in the sports ever since I was 3 years old. There's a lot for me to give back to the youth. There's a lot for me to give back to the sport in general. And so that's exactly what I'm doing. You know, with Nebraska USA Wrestling, we're doing some great things. The state is growing every year. We're producing some tough athletes now, and we're putting Nebraska on the map. You know, and it's just amazing. It's amazing to be able to be a part of that. But as far as top tier performance with grit, you know, there is no product out there that does what grit does. It's like think of it this way. It's like grit for the normal person on the streets drinks Gatorade, right? Grit is for the athletes, for extreme athletes. That's what grit is. It's basically
yeah, because if anybody ever if you ever look at the nutrition info on a Gatorade, it's a lot more sugar than you realize. It's you know, there's a lot of stuff in there that, you know, I would recommend everybody take a moment and look at the nutritional facts on a Gatorade.
Yeah, it's nothing more than sugar water. Okay, it's nothing more than sugar water with dye in it, which is also not good for you. And grit, I can go into it, but I mean, we have great athletes that have tried it and loved it. I mean, you have athletes like, you know, Jaden Cox. You have athletes like Pat Donnie. You have athletes like, I mean, we have a lot of you know, huge, big level athletes that love grit, and they try it and they never go back. You have Kamal Bey. You know, you have. And what it is it's hydration for sure. I mean, it's best hydration that you're going to find. And then it gives you energy, which you need as a wrestler. You have a lot of energy and endurance, and it helps with recovery and muscle fatigueness. And that's crucial. It's crucial. Imagine this, you know, how many times after weigh-ins you go and you drink Pedialyte, which is, it's literally 1/4 of what grit does. You drink Pedialyte, and then you go and you eat some bagels or whatever, peanut butter with the honey or jelly sandwiches or whatever you're eating, right? And you go and you compete. The truth of the matter is, nothing you eat is going to give you energy for 1 hour later to compete. Nothing you eat. You need something that absorbs fast in your body with like liquid, which is it's grit. It literally absorbs in your body like glucose. It's like you're putting IV in your system, and it just gives you this energy, and you're ready to go and compete. But it tastes great. It's allowed for all athletes. You know, it's now it's informed sport, informed choice certified, and it's a great product. So anyways, it's there's nothing out there like it, and more athletes need to definitely drink it if they care about the way they feel when they perform. But that's what we developed grit, and that's on the ttpnutrition.com website, but also it's also on the bestwrestler.com website. And the Best Wrestler, we have the feather singlet on there.
Could I give a short little promo for grit on my own side? Could I plug it for you? Because, you know, Georgie, I'm sure you would love everybody to buy your product. And I think that things like this are very important, because if you are an athlete, especially a wrestler who is trying to get to a certain weight class, but you're not worried about your hydration, if you're not worried about making sure that when you go to compete, you're going to be not weigh in. I'm not saying weigh in. You know, people weigh in, they do what they do. But when you go to compete, if you're not fully hydrated, you are going to compete poorly. You're going to perform suboptimally, under where you should. And so you need to have a plan for, how am I going to get as hydrated and as ready to go as possible. And I think a drink like grit, it can be really, really important for somebody. And, you know, I know that I'm somebody who lost matches because I cut too much weight, because I didn't know how to rehydrate the right way. But every time I would go to a product, you know, every time I would maybe talk to a doctor, they'd always say, Oh, just don't cut weight. You know, it's always from somebody who's never like cut weight in their life, or they've never like dealt with dehydration in their life in that same way. Grit is for athletes by athletes. It is something that it can really help our specific needs. And so I think that, you know, everybody should go check it out at ttpnutrition.com. And you also have the featherlight singlet, Georgie.
Yeah, the feather singlet. The
feather singlet, I apologize.
No, that's okay. The feather singlet was it's again, you know, it's actually, my father and I have talked about this for a long time, and we finally developed it. It's feather singlet was developed because if you guys don't know about wrestling and wrestling international wrestling, you know, UWW in the summer, freestyle and Greco, you must weigh in with a singlet. Well, I don't know for those of you that know this or not, but a regular singlet weighs anywhere around half a pound, 0.5 of a pound, okay? That means that you have to cut an extra half a pound just so you can make weight. That to me seemed ridiculous, especially when I'm trying to keep people have energy, stay hydrated, and perform at an optimal level. That's, you know, therefore grit. But with that being said, we developed a singlet that is UWW compliant, right? It's competition ready. You can wrestle in it, but it weighs 1/10 of a pound. Okay, that's 1/5 of what a normal singlet weighs. That way, you don't have to lose half a pound under your weight just so you can make weight. You don't have to lose 1/10, and you weigh in with that singlet. And why lose more weight than you need to? Why get dehydrated more than you need to and break muscle down more than you need to? That just sounds ridiculous to me. When you can have this inexpensive singlet that's 5 times lighter than your normal singlet, and you weigh in and you go on about your business, drink grit after weigh-ins, and now you have the optimal, now you go and reap the rewards, right? Reap the benefits of what your hard work and how you know how to wrestle.
Man, I completely agree. And this is something that comes up in jiu-jitsu too, because in jiu-jitsu, you need to weigh in right before your match, mat side, with your gi on, like, you know, exactly as you're going to compete. And so all the time, guys are trying to find like the lightest gis that are possible, or the lightest whatever that's possible. And
so you're telling me that we need the feather gi.
We need the feather gi is exactly what I'm telling you, man. If you can, you know, get together with, because last year at Worlds, Mikey Musumeci, who's the 3-time world champion for America, is the only 3-time world champion for America. He was dropping to a new weight class, and he was like shaving his head at, you know, right next to the mat, and like, you know, he had to like drop like an extra like 0.3, and he's like trying to figure out how to do it, and like, man, you know, your fucking gi's probably a little heavy. I'm sure he had to, figure out.
Yeah, and think about this. He's shaving his head. That's not going to give him anything, not even 1/10, okay? When he can go, well, not him personally, but wrestlers. I see wrestlers miss weight by 1/10 or 2/10 all the time. And
it happened to a kid I was coaching. He took 3rd in the state the year before, and then he comes back and he misses weight.
Right.
At state. How are you going to do that?
There's so many people that I know that have missed weight by 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, that they would have never missed that weight if they just had the feather singlet.
Yeah, anybody who's cut weight before, I mean, you know that, like, that last half a pound, like, it's not that you're cutting half a pound. It's that you're cutting the last half pound, right?
The last half a pound. Miserable.
It's totally different. So you're a super busy guy, Georgie, and, you know, we've talked here for a while, so I want to start to transition. I want to take a second to plug a couple of things. Everybody needs to make sure they check out fanaticwrestling.com. Make sure you check out all of our social media, including our Twitter account at Fanatic Wrestling. Make sure you check out our Facebook group, which is growing all the time. We have, you know, some athletes in there. We're always trying to pump that up as much as possible. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast so we can grow this thing and hopefully get to do some really cool stuff here at Fanatic Wrestling. Georgie, I want to ask you. Hit me?
Can I say something real quick?
Of course.
Guys.
Man, I'm not even done asking you questions. I got a couple more things I'm going to ask you.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to plug something here too.
Hit me.
If you're not following Fanatics Wrestling, if you're not following BJJ Fanatics, you're missing out. You're not dedicated to what you're doing. There's so much information on those websites that this is not like it used to be. You're no longer limited. You're no longer missing good coaching and missing good technique. You're no longer behind the curve. Okay, all you need is to go on there and study whatever style that you love. Okay, whatever style that's close to you. Go and purchase that instructional and master it. Study it like like your life depends on it. Okay, perfect it, get better at it, and go and achieve the maximum success that you can.
Man, I know that I can't come on here and say, like, if you get one of these, you will be a super tough wrestler. But man, if you know all the moves that are on one of these DVDs, or not DVDs, instructional series, if you know one of the moves that's on one of these series, then it's going to be tough. You know, you're going to level up, certainly, is my belief.
Joe, what's good about this is think about this, okay? Yeah, you have YouTube, right? You can go on YouTube and try to spend, tens of hours trying to find the one technique that you want to perfect. Or you can go and purchase your instructional DVD and know exactly what you're getting, exactly the position that you want to master, and you just go and master it for a little investment. Guys, you don't understand. These athletes, these top-level athletes that have recorded instructionals on BJJ Fanatics or Fanatic Wrestling, they have spent their whole life. They have spent their whole life studying this, perfecting this, mastering this, blood, sweat, and tears, only so they can deliver this on a silver platter for you for the small cost that it costs. And all you have to do is purchase it and go and study this. It's a shortcut. It's a shortcut to your success. And I don't know how to emphasize this.
Georgi, I want to ask you a couple of little lightning round style questions. Sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it. What's a wrestling lesson or position you wish you learned earlier?
Hand fighting, number one.
Boom. What's on your mind right before a match?
Positive thoughts. I'm unstoppable. I can do my moves, and I've trained too hard to let this slip. It's a war out there.
What's the first move you remember getting good at?
Fireman's carry.
Boom. And you have a sick one off that 2-on-1, by the way. What's the first thing a young wrestler should learn?
Hand fighting.
Boom. Same answer. What advice would you give someone who wants to go from good to great?
Mental toughness. You need to master your thoughts and what you're thinking, and being positive and believing in yourself 100%.
Georgi, I want to give you a chance, to plug anything that you want to right now. Social media, maybe any sponsorships, talk about, plug your products one more time, please.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Guys, if you, and this is, listen, grit is selling regardless. The best, the singlets are selling regardless. Here's the truth. If you care about your nutrition and you care about your hydration and performing well, and in preventing your muscles from completely breaking down, basically, if you care about your performance, you need to drink grit. You need to recover with grit. If you don't know what grit is, go on TTP, stands for Top Tier Performance. It's ttpnutrition.com, and just do me a favor, get yourself one, try it. If you don't like it, guess what? If you don't like it, I have a 110% guarantee on there. If you don't like it, send it back. I'll give you not only your money, but 10% on top of that if you don't like it, okay? But you need to go and try it. And the singlets, if you're any type of dedicated wrestler that you wrestle in the summer, go and get your feather singlet. It's not right now we have a sale. I think it's like $30 with free shipping. For crying out loud, it's $30. It's $30 worth you cutting an extra half a pound every single time you step on the scale. Yes, it's worth it. It's $30. Come on, guys. Anyways.
How about this? Next time you're a half pound away from weight, ask yourself, would I pay $30 to be done cutting weight right now?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But anyways, go to thebestwrestler.com, check it out. And again, guys, you 2-on-1, the Russian type, my 2-on-1 encyclopedia. Okay. If you love that position, great, go and get it. But I don't care what position you love. I don't care what type of wrestler that you are. You must purchase the Hand Fighting Explained. You must purchase that DVD, because that is the A, B, and C to your wrestling success. I guarantee you that. Okay, I guarantee that. And again, I want to say huge thank you to you, Joe. Number one, I want to thank Michael and Bernardo. Okay, I want to thank you guys, BJJ Fanatics, Wrestling Fanatics. You guys have been nothing but great to me and fair. And you guys are a platform for me to show my life's work. You guys are a platform for me to educate other kids and impact kids and help them. And not only kids, adults as well, and coaches and parents, and help them get to the next level, get to the next level that I know that they can. And I'm very thankful and grateful for you guys. And yeah, just thank you.
Georgi, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And man, let's talk again soon.
Absolutely, Joe. I appreciate you. Thank you. Have a great day, man.